really worried about the World Trade Organization and what they have to say, but that's just me. Hey, good morning. Good morning, New Hampshire. Good morning, Maine. Good morning, New England. Good morning, worldwide. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google. Play the pulse of NH. J Dog on the boards as we get going on this Tuesday morning. Welcome to 4 days into February. And we do have, well, not a bad looking Tuesday. You just heard in our local forecast, I guess the wintry mix. Some stuff comes back on Thursday. We do have a couple of, you just heard Mike Pomp in our local news, the great Pomp, Michael, talking about a couple bad accidents this morning. That school bus accident in Pelham, and then an energy delivery truck overturned, or it looks like it overturned, and a couple serious injuries up in Meredith. So we hope everyone's okay. There was some slipping and sliding out there. As you know, yesterday was a little milder, and so a lot of that stuff freezes in the morning. I think people tend to forget that. So some slipping and sliding. But I want to get all the stuff correct in our programming updates because there's a lot to get correct, as J-Dog constantly reminds me. We we have our own YouTube channel now, the first hour of the show live. If you want to watch, just the Pulse of an H on YouTube. Our daily poll question on X, and that's just simply at the Pulse of an H. We'll tell you results from yesterday as we get going this morning, and our new question on X. And then everywhere else, smart devices, our app, download the app. We make it easy for you. Again, one password for everything on demand or live on our AM and FM network of news talk stations here. Good morning, New Hampshire. Good morning, Maine, as I said, in New England and beyond, and worldwide. And the app is really easy to download. It's a great app. All the local news, weather, national stuff, breaking news at the Pulse of an H. And, of course, a lot of people listening on their smartphones and smart devices. As we get going this morning, you also at the pulseofanh.com can learn about my trip out to cowboy country this fall in October. October 7th, we leave with our friends at Colette Travel. We're going to go do Yellowstone, the National Park, the Badlands, Mount Rushmore, Jackson Hole, you name it, a week on the go with local experts and guides, great food and transportation and all that, and the accommodation. So check it out, the pulseofanh.com. J-Dog, we get a packed show for you. We're going to hear from some of our own contributors, Alicia Preston-Xanthopoulos, Seacoast Online, our own White House correspondent, John Decker, coming up in a little bit. Anna Brown, Citizens Count, will update us on some busy stuff at the State House. We also welcome in a new political contributor, political analyst and expert, Dean Spiliotis, Southern New Hampshire University, will be checking in the 10 o'clock hour. So we have a lot going on. Well, 2 weeks have come and gone. Can you believe it? And what a 2 weeks it's been. You know, I've noticed some back and forth, and I've reached some inescapable conclusions, and they shouldn't be shocking to anyone. Donald Trump continues to stir it up. So why is that a surprise? He got some pretty big concessions out of Mexico and Canada. I don't know if you caught yesterday afternoon, Trudeau is pledging $1.5 billion additionally to be spent on the border between Canada and the United States, our northern border. That after the Mexican president committed 10,000 troops and more support on the border to stop the flow of fentanyl and other illegal stuff coming into the United States on the southwest border. And Trump is holding off any tariffs on Canada and Mexico goods for at least 30 days. And now it's China. China is now front and center. You heard in the news, China is reacting, talking about all this stuff, the Trump's threat or promise of levying some tariffs on China. And we'll see where this goes. I believe President Trump has some talks with the Chinese leader coming up, and we'll see where that goes. But Trump is being Trump. He's stirring things up, and I don't know why that's a big surprise. I really don't. A couple other stories of interest. Speaking of the southwest border, I don't know if you caught this one. So the Mexican cartels, you've heard on my show, Good Morning New Hampshire, for the past few years. He's now retired, but John DeLina lives in New Hampshire. He was the number two senior official at the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration. He came on our show more than once in the last couple of years, and he said there are two major Mexican cartels that are responsible for about 98% of the bad stuff happening at the southwest border. Sinaloa cartel was one of them. He named them. And what is it, J-Doc? There you go. Those were the two. And Trump is now declaring those terrorist organizations. So I don't know if you've heard this one. The cartels are now targeting Border Patrol agents with these kamikaze type, I guess, forgive the analogy from World War II with the Japanese bombers, but drones and explosives targeting border agents. So cartels aren't too happy with the United States and Mexico cracking down on the border. They're ordering members to target U.S. Border Patrol agents with these drones and other explosives. An internal memo entitled Officer Safety Alert cited social media posts and other sources, according to this article on Fox News, warning the federal agents that they would be targeted by the cartels. So this is escalating at the border. Now, when all said and done, Caroline Leavitt, President Trump's press secretary from New Hampshire, of course, said just yesterday that the actions taken with really Mexico, Canada to a point, and China certainly, a lot of this has to do with the deadly flow and production and distribution of fentanyl. And I don't think people understand sometimes if you don't know someone who's overdosed or taken fentanyl, you don't understand. But we spent a lot of time. In fact, we did a town hall in my show at Bank NH Stage at the Capitol Center for the Arts last summer on addiction as well as mental health. But John Delano was up talking about fentanyl and how just basically the tip of a pen, if you just think of a pen or pencil, that small amount, like a granular of sugar of the current stuff that they're basically distributing out of Mexico with these cartels across the border with some of the chemical origins from China can kill. And you've heard of Narcan in our communities to basically revive someone, but the number one cause of death for young people in America under 40 years old in the last few years has been a drug overdose. So this should not be a surprise. New Hampshire per capita has one of the highest addiction rates overall. The cartel, believe it or not, El Chapo, Joaquin Guzman, who's in prison, when his brother and him stayed at the Wentworth Hotel over in Rye, they targeted New Hampshire. This goes back a long time ago before they set up distribution routes for things like cocaine and heroin and other drugs and eventually fentanyl up into our corridor. And New Hampshire, unfortunately, has had a real problem, as has Maine, to an extent with fentanyl. And the Trump administration has gotten serious about doing something about it finally, stopping the flow of this stuff. It's just unbelievable. And the cartels don't give a darn how addictive, how potent, how lethal it is. They could care less. I've done so many shows, Jada, countless shows where people have said, well, why does the cartel make the fentanyl so poisonous and toxic that it can kill their customers? Because they don't care. The stronger they make it, the stronger the addiction craving for those who are addicted. The stronger they make it, the stronger the people that take it will chase the last high. They don't care. The cartels don't care if it kills their customers. And these are multi-billion-dollar criminal syndicates. And Trump is the first president in our modern era who's taken on the cartels, taken on Mexico, taken on our borders, trying to stop the flow of fentanyl. And anyone who has a problem with this, anyone out there, you're either so partisan that you can't see clarity. You can't just see that it's night or day out. Don't tell me what the Biden-Harris administration did for the past 4 years on fentanyl, because the crisis is just getting worse and worse and worse. Trump's finally doing something about it. He's done more in 2 weeks than I've seen in 4 years. Done more in 2 weeks than I've seen in 4 years. He's also rounding up a lot of the criminal elements of illegal migration. I didn't see that over the last 4 years. We have now countries willing to take some of these people back and use their own means to take them back. So he's standing up. He's doing what he said, and it's only been 2 weeks. But as far as fentanyl in this state, in this region, we should be very grateful. In fact, in 2015, when then candidate Donald Trump was on my show in the morning, he came into my studios at the time. He was with Corey Lewandowski of New Hampshire, who was managing his campaign at the time. And before we went on the air, after he introduced himself, like I knew who he was. I mean, Trump was famous before he ran. He said, Jack, before we go on, tell me 2 things I don't know about New Hampshire. This is a true story. And I've shared some stories in the past when I interviewed Bill Clinton, when he would ask me offline and what we talked about. So Trump asked me in 2015 on the run up to 2016, he said, tell me 2 things I don't know about New Hampshire. And he paused and he wanted an answer. He really did. I said, we have a real bad drug issue. Fentanyl is killing people here. It's a synthetic fentanyl, opioids. I said, the opioid addiction is unbelievable. At the time, people were getting hooked on opioids, pain meds, and then trying heroin because it was cheaper on the street. And then we started to barely, slowly start to hear about fentanyl. Now fentanyl's replaced heroin, but I said, we have a real opioid addiction problem here in New Hampshire. And then I said, we are underserving our veterans. We're not taking very good care of our veterans. They have to drive to Jamaica Plain in Massachusetts or Vermont or Maine to get a endoscopy, and it's just wrong. We shouldn't be doing that." He said, "Okay, thank you." So the drug problem, he's finally doing something about it. I just love the partisanship. People can't stand up and say, "Wow, it's been 2 weeks, and I may not like Trump, and I may not like his style, and I may not like him, but you know what? He's doing something. In 2 weeks, he's actually doing something about an out of control border that 85, 87% of people said it was a crisis going into the last election. And he's doing something about fentanyl. Oh my goodness, we can't agree on that. What can we agree on? Probably not much, huh? Commentary 603 228 2080. We come back. Alicia Preston Xanthopoulos and our own White House correspondent coming up, John Decker. We'll tell you what our poll question on X, the pulse of an H, is in a moment. All right, welcome back. You know what? I thought we'd take a break in the national action as we bring in Alicia Preston Xanthopoulos, Seacoast Online, in our poll question on X, the pulse of an H. You know, I said earlier, you get all these passwords, get all these pins you got to remember. I don't know about you, I can't remember half of them sometimes. Well, we make all the pulse stuff easy for you. Everything's the pulse of an H, the website, the app, the on-demand stuff, the poll question on X, the YouTube channel, the Pulse of an H. So there you go. And our question this morning on X, and J Dog can tell us quickly yesterday, we're going to ask you because it's really looming. It's people may not even think about it, but do you think U.S. Senator Jeanne Shaheen, the senior member of our delegation, she's been in the Senate, former governor, former state senator, well known, well respected, some key leadership positions. Do you think she should run for reelection in 2026? That's going to start before you know it because it's a U.S. Senate race. We did not have one this last cycle in the presidential cycle. We had congressional and the presidential, but not a big U.S. Senate race. So her seat's coming up, and there is some question: will she run at this stage in her life? Does she want to run again? But we just want to ask you: do you think she's should run again? Many people said she's been a very effective U.S. senator, and no matter what Republican gets the nomination, whether it's Scott Brown or someone else, many people say she'll be very formidable to unseat or defeat. The question is: do you think? Or do you think she should run again? We just want to simply gauge that. Jeanne Shaheen, do you think she should run again for another term? Yes or no? Trending on X, J-Dog, yesterday's. Thank you, J-Dog. Thank you. Yeah, on the terrace. All right, APX, Seacoast Online. I know you're on the road. Good morning. I'm okay. You don't no, no, you don't give a damn. You just say that to be polite. You were raised by a very gracious, nice person. Your mom, great teacher. Do you think Senator Shaheen should run again? Wow. Wow, I didn't expect a direct answer like that. Well, is Mitch McConnell still is he still roaming around the Senate? All right, what we had Governor Ayotte on the show yesterday. What's happening in the state house? Interesting. What about what are the we have Anna Brown coming up. If you had to say, what are there any big? Is the budget the main story this session? All right. What else is catching your eye? Oh my goodness. So what's your two? Yesterday we got 2 weeks. I don't know about you, but it makes me think. It just it's like warp speed. It's like a marathon the last 2 weeks with Trump and the administration. Everything from the border, rounding up, migrant, illegal migrant who are criminals, detaining, deporting, tariffs, DEI stuff, the U.S. aid group temporarily closed. I mean, there's so much happening, you almost can't keep track of it all. But he's doing what he said when he ran. I mean, that's one thing that's very clear. Mhm. Mhm. I'm not really gonna go toe to toe and disagree with you, but I honestly believe that he's not going to, and it may not be the right thing, the right speed. I believe if you look at Donald Trump in the last 4 years and the last couple years, all the court cases, all the stuff he endured, like you said, on Inauguration Day, he got in there the first time they were in there, like Bill Clinton when they won. I don't think the Trump team, according to his son, I think it was Don Jr. was on my show around the election. He said, "We really didn't know what we were doing. It happened. We didn't think it would win." So they had to learn their way in the first term. I think since then he's paid attention and he's been waiting to get back in there. And I don't think there's any way to convince him to slow down because I think in his mind, in the first year, he wants to get as much done as humanly possible. And where he gets his stamina, Alicia, I have no idea. At his age, you mentioned getting older, he doesn't really sleep. He goes, he's talking at night, he's doing press conference. He's done more press conferences in 2 weeks than Biden did in 4 years. Yeah. Yeah. And again, I'm not going to disagree with you because no, because you know what? When people say we need a business person to run, to get in politics, we all like that. But when the business person gets into politics, you just can't simply do all that as quickly as you can, maybe in the private sector world. But we'll see where it goes. All right, you're going to drive safely, please. APX. Thank you. All right. That was Eric Trump, by the way, who was on my show. Thank you, Jedok, for reminding me of that. We're going to take a quick break. John Decker, our own White House correspondent, on deck next. It is Tuesday. Jack Heath, Jedok on the boards, our network of news talk stations up into Maine, WTSN, Seacoast of New Hampshire, Seacoast of Maine, Dover, Rochester, Portsmouth, Hampton, you name it. And of course, our Lakes region, we have you blanketed, our brand new signal up there. Actually, it's not brand new now, but it's new 98.3 FM HD2 on top of our WEMJ AM and FM 107.7 FM WTPL. We have you covered. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Jack Heath, back in a moment. tell you as we await John Decker, our own White House correspondent, and he's going to talk about a couple of the confirmation hearings back today. The Senate, or these committees are before the whole Senate vote. Tulsi Gabbard, National Security or National Intelligence Committee is going to vote, as well as RFK Jr. But I will tell you that the Trump administration, 2 weeks in a day, and Alicia Preston-Xanthopoulos, great political thinker, just had some constructive criticism that maybe they should slow down a little bit. They're going at breakneck speed. It's a marathon, and they're running like a sprint. I don't know if there's any way to tell President Trump to slow down. I mean, so much has happened in 2 weeks. I honestly, historically, and John Decker, our own White House correspondent, joining us now. Good morning, New Hampshire, the Pulse of an Age, might be able to tell me this. In our modern era, has there ever been a president, John Decker, or administration in the first 2 weeks that moved so quickly on so many fronts between executive orders and just pushing across the board so fast? I can't remember one out of the gate this fast. And John, today, Tulsi Gabbard, nomination is up to head up national intelligence, and it might be a tight one as Senate Finance going to also vote on Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for HHS. Yeah, I would think because you look at those key couple, there's only 3 or 4 depending on which way they go. All right, John Decker, thank you for the time, our own White House correspondent. Just to take a moment before we come back to talking about some of the local political stuff. And by the way, thanks for joining us. This is Good Morning New Hampshire, but it's really now Good Morning Maine, Good Morning New England, Good Morning Worldwide. We have thousands of you each morning. It blows my mind to get these overnight or every other day reports on who's streaming as well, in addition to our AM and FM great network of news talk stations, who's streaming and listening to the show. And most of the, like, I think it's more than 50% of you who are listening outside of our network, in other states and countries, or literally other parts of this country. Um, More than 50% on a smartphone. That would be our app. And then, of course, any smart device. Hey Alexa, hey Google, just say the pulse of an age between 9 and noon, and you're going to hear the show. It's just like you go home and you say, "Hey, easy, hey Google, easy listening," as you're maybe thinking about cooking something. The pulse of an age, 9 to noon. You get the show anywhere, and it's been amazing. But and thank you for joining us. We do have a couple of accidents we're trying to get clean up this morning. There's a school bus accident. A car was involved with a school bus in Pelham. We hope everyone's okay. Mike Pomp is going to keep you posted on these. Mike Pomp in our news side, local news, of course, his morning information center. Speaking of the Pulse of an H, 5:30 to 9 before my show. Mike also talking about there was it was a energy truck, delivery truck overturned. Bad accidents with some serious injuries rollover in Meredith. So we're tracking those for you this morning. But I do want to say, just one thing about, sort of presidential history for a moment, or administration history and change. And there is something else about this Trump factor, which amazes me. And I mean this from an academic, historical point of view. In the 10 o'clock hour, we're going to bring in a new political contributor and analyst and expert as part of our bullpen or stable or bench of great contributors. Dean Spiliotis is a political science professor. He's been around. Southern Hampshire University will join us in the 10 o'clock hour. It's a question I'll ask him, and I just asked John Decker, our own White House correspondent. But when you think about Donald Trump, because the stuff that wasn't the top line of him winning on November 5th. And by the way, there's some things I choose not to forget. There's other things I want to forget. Believe me, I love to clean the slate, as they say, clear the memory sometimes, but my memory just sometimes won't do that. But I will never forget it. I'll never forget going into election that evening on November 5th and that morning, what the national pollsters told us, and they were all wrong. And why we just keep talking about giving them credibility or thinking they're relevant. The networks were wrong. Everyone said going in, not everyone, 98% of the so-called know-it-alls in DC, New York, LA said the swing states, the battleground states, too close to call. Let me repeat, too close to call. We won't know for weeks or months who wins the election. They thought it would be mid to late December by the holidays before the winner was declared. We knew that night. The polls were wrong the last 3 times. People forget. I don't. I believe me. I'm not being a wise guy when I say this. I wish I could sometimes. I wish I could forget stuff. I mean that sincerely. It'd be a healthier, less anxiety. I wish I could. Hillary Clinton, when Trump and Harris, it just didn't feel like it was going to be that close. I started to say and feel in the last week or two that when I saw the Harris campaign dragging out Liz Cheney and all these billionaire celebrities telling you how bad Trump was, I go, "Oh my goodness, they got nothing. Wait a minute. I think Trump is going to win. People want change. Harris can't even answer the question why she's going to be different than Biden, and she's running around with Liz Cheney or a celebrity." I go, "Oh my goodness." But I look back 2 or 3 weeks before, if you remember on the show before November 5th, and I looked up Hillary Clinton's Trump race in 2016. And about a month before the election, Hillary Clinton in these so-called know-it-all polls nationally had a 20-point lead over Trump, and it was going to be a historic, historic win. An historic, landslide was the word they used, win in both the popular vote and electoral college, and Trump won. And then the midterms, and then of course 2020, and then of course this last election. It was going to be too close to call, and it was a toss-up, and it wasn't. But the thing about Trump that's unusual, and I mean, there's a lot of things, let's face it. So he's president the first term, beats Hillary Clinton. Then Biden gets in there. We won't debate that. I know what Trump has his opinions, and he can have them. But Trump really never stopped running, did he? He never really stopped running. And then when he got out early this last time around, when people like Ron DeSantis was going to jump in the field again, this is the stuff I wish I could forget. The Florida governor won in that midterm reelection in Florida with the biggest coattails and the biggest Ron DeSantis, not Trump. I'm just going to tell you real history here. Ron DeSantis, not Donald Trump, was sort of the favored new front runner from those Republicans who felt that people would have had enough of Trump and that the best thing would be to nominate someone else if Biden was running again. Remember, Biden was running again until he was forced out. So here's the deal. Trump gets out there early, starts defining Ron DeSantis, going at the Florida governor, to sanctimonious. On my show, you say, he nicknamed DeSantis, attacked the Florida governor before DeSantis even had a chance to stand up coming out of his gubernatorial historic win in Florida. Trump's all over him. So DeSantis ends up winning, but he can never really get out from underneath the barrage of Trump on DeSantis. Then eventually Nikki Haley started to, take hold and hung in there. But every other candidate who was going against Trump this last time around, I remember it vividly because of our primary, our first in the nation presidential primary, Chris Christie, these other candidates, Mike Pence. People forget Trump's own vice president ran. People forget this stuff. They forget. I don't know why they forget. They forget. History is a good way to learn about what's coming. So Mike DeSantis gets out there, his own vice president, Chris Christie, saying, "I'm the guy who can go 1-to-1, one-on-one, toe-to-toe with Trump." Chris Christie, "I'm the guy who can battle Trump. You need someone like me." And he just dismantled Christie. He dismantled everyone in his path. Wins the primaries. Nikki Haley hung in there longer than anyone. Trump wins big. And then he's gearing up. It looked like in Wisconsin, coming out of the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, the picking J.D. Vance, they thought was not a great choice. But coming out of the convention, it was like Trump is going to win. There's no way Biden can win. And then they force Biden out. Harris gets in there, and Trump wins again. But if you think about it, going back to 2014, 2015, when Trump was up in New Hampshire a year or two before 2016, Trump has really been you know, front and center. If you go back, think about that. You go back 2016. So now here we are. I mean, look at how many years Trump's been right there on the doorstep. And it's been a long time, and he's back in again. Never really went away. One of the biggest political comebacks in American history, probably the biggest. If you look at all the court cases, everything else, it's hard to compare because no one else, even Nixon, wasn't under all these cases for the last year. Manhattan local stuff, Manhattan DA, Attorney General in New York, the Justice Department. He's never stopped fighting, and he wins, and he's back in there. It's really a remarkable period when people are so fickle today that after one or two terms or whatever. But Trump is really, if you go back to the first term and then the 4 years in the middle with Biden Harris, and now it's been an amazing period of Trump sort of being in the news nonstop, in the news nonstop, in the news nonstop since sort of day one. All right, we're going to be back in a moment. Is Jeanne Shaheen, that's our poll question on X at the Pulse of an H, is U.S. Senator Jeanne Shaheen, should she run for re-election in the U.S. Senate? We're just gauging that. Michael Graham has his own thoughts based on some fundraising metrics. New Hampshire Journal on deck next. All right, interesting take here, and it ended up becoming our poll question this morning on X, the Pulse of an H. should U.S. Senator Jeanne Shaheen run for reelection. Now, it's not till 2026 November, but it really starts. It's all indirectly behind the scenes. It starts now, these Senate races. And Alicia Preston-Xanthopoulos boldly weighed in earlier um, as a Republican analyst, singing praise on Senator Shaheen and her constituent service and her role and effectiveness as a senator, senior senator. But Alicia saying she actually thinks no, she should not, and get some new people in there, new folks, younger folks. And a lot of people have that consensus. But Michael Graham, NH Journal, talking about fundraising questions and barometers about Senator Shaheen's 2026 plans. Take it away, Michael. She could be uncertain or leaning against it, but she also, I think part of, I'll give you sort of an obscure answer there. Yes, it's sort of visible and maybe within the cycle, but you look at the shocking, for many Democrats, the shocking loss nationally of November 5th, and they're sort of back on their heels as a party nationally, and they're trying to figure out where they're at. They've changed their tune on sanctuary cities, some of them. They're trying to figure out where they are, who they are as a party. They're trying to figure out what happened. It's like the car accident at the intersection on November 5th. What happened? And they may all be behind trying to figure out what they want to do, because for the first time, Shaheen, for a while, she's in the minority now, even though she has ranking positions in the U.S. Senate. She would probably, she'd go into this election in the minority. So maybe it's just a sign of aftermath still from November 5th. Mester, yeah. So, well, I I would actually contrast. I think Senator Sheen's a tad bit sharper than Joe Biden. But let me ask you here. Hey, I what I I have to laugh when the most recent press secretary for Joe Biden, of course, Caroline Leavitt, now for President Trump, said, "Oh, he's running circles around all of us." Oh, yeah, okay. Hey, hey, what if if these early barometers are accurate and Senator Shaheen decides not to run again, the big question among Democrats, he's mentioned Scott Brown already out there as a Republican interested, more than interested. Who steps right in there quickly? As is it a Chris Pappas? Is it a Chris Pappas in the first district? Who steps in there? Right. Well, you didn't answer my question. Who do you think? Well, it has to be someone with some degree of name recognition. No, no, nope, nope. I think Chris Pappas would be the one who would look at that most seriously. Yeah. Yeah, good point. All right. Good stuff. Thank you, Michael. I have to just share this. I don't know if you've heard about the US aid, the foreign aid arm, this that Musk and the Trump team shut down temporarily. They were reviewing the taxpayer money. But Caroline Leavitt, speaking of press secretaries, I think it was yesterday. She stood out. Yes, it was yesterday. She stood out and in front of the White House, and she held up her account of U.S. aid and their spending. And she stood out there in front of the media, all firing questions at her. And she said she had a sheet. And this is according to a British article media. She went through line by line some of the spending. $1.5 million USA to advance DEI in Serbia's workplace. Serbia's workplaces. $70,000 for a production of a DEI musical in Ireland. $47,000 USAID was going to spend or spending for a transgender, and $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. She said, she went on to say, she said, as a, as an American, I don't know about you, but as an American taxpayer, Pat Levitt said, as an American taxpayer, I don't want my dollars going towards this crap. And I know the American people don't either. And that's exactly why Elon Musk has been tasked by President Trump to look at this fraud, waste, and abuse out of control of the federal government. But again, $0.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces, $75,000 for a production of a DEI musical in Ireland, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, and $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. There you have it. All right. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an Age. Coming up, got a packed show for you. Anna Brown, Citizens Count's going to weigh in on the State House stuff. We're also going to debut, well, he's been on my show years ago, but Dean Spiliotis is a professor, political science professor, Southern New Hampshire University, Penman Pride, one of our great partners and sponsors out there, new political analyst weighing in on the history already of the Trump presidency, how fast they're going. We're going to also hear Mike Cody on the New Hampshire Business Review side. Mark Hayward has an article on how many foreign workers comprise New Hampshire's workforce. We'll talk about that. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. It's a Tuesday, 4 days into February. It's 9:58, top of the hour almost. Back in a moment.